It was an old urban legend in the town where I lived. An old bridge and a beast that was said to stalk it. The stories have been told for generations, and no one actually believed the stories, but they were always fun to tell. And through the years, the beast's appearance changed, depending on who was telling the story. Some said the beast was a werewolf, an unfortunate farmer who had been bitten by a wolf when he was trying to protect his livestock one cold winter's night, many years ago. Others say the beast was a cannibal hermit who had lived in the woods surrounding the town, and if you found yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time, well, consider yourself dinner. Other stories told of an escaped science experiment, half wolf, half bear, or half bear and half deer, or half deer and half wolf, once again depending on who was telling the story. Either way, the Beast of Badger's Bridge was a fun tale to tell around a campfire or on a cold Halloween night, but it wasn't true. Probably a story that got its origins from the pioneers when they first ventured into the area over 200 years ago. Badger's Bridge, however, was a real bridge. It was a covered bridge, you know, the typical haunted kind, the type we see in the legend of Sleepy Hollow when Ichabod Crane is chased by the Headless Horseman. Yes, that kind of bridge. And yeah, it was super creepy. First of all, it was kind of out in the middle of nowhere and kind of in the middle of the woods. Okay, maybe not in the middle of the woods, but certainly surrounded by them. It provided a pass over the Nanashee River, and unfortunately, the bridge and the river had taken a number of lives. Actually, the bridge and the river weren't to blame. They just assisted when some unfortunate souls decided they didn't want to live anymore. The bridge had at one time been one of the main routes into town, but since the main highway was built about 30 years ago, the bridge just kind of became forgotten. It was still kept up and used, but for the most part, forgotten. 20 years ago, I was a high school senior. One Saturday night, my then boyfriend, Byron, and myself were invited over to a mutual friend's house for a bonfire. It was late May, and school would be out in about a month for the summer holidays. As darkness set in and the flames began to cast eerie shadows, the theme changed, and ghost stories began to be told. And, of course, the Beast of Badger's Bridge came up. We all knew our version of the story. And then someone suggested we actually go to the bridge. And because we were all dumb teenagers full of adrenaline, we all thought it was a great idea. Why not? There was nothing there after all. It was just a bridge. And the stories weren't true anyhow. We were just going to go there and scare each other. Byron had his license and his own car, as did our friend Nate, whose house we were at. There were 6 of us altogether. 3 went in Nate's car and 3 in Byron's. When the fire was safely put out, we headed to the Badger Bridge. It was almost 11 when we arrived. We parked the cars on the side of the road. Nate and Byron had the flashlights, and as a group, we headed for the bridge. It was quiet out here. We could hear the sound of rushing water from the Nanashee River, and the breeze rustling the leaves. Other than that, nothing, except for the sound of our own footsteps. No sounds of any oncoming cars, no sounds of any other people. We were out here, alone. In the near distance, we could see the bridge. It stood in the darkness like a giant black mass. No streetlights and no lights on the bridge. But we were just a bunch of teenagers looking for a frightfully fun time. We all started to scare each other. The girls would scream, the boys would laugh, and when we made it to the bridge, we were all pretty much freaked out. But we continued scaring each other. At one point, our friend Becky scared our friend Janet. Both girls screamed, and then I screamed, the guys yelled, and we all started laughing and goofing around. But then suddenly, in the middle of all our noise, another noise ripped through the otherwise quiet countryside. It sounded like a wolf's howl, but there was something different about it. I can't explain how or why it was different, even to this day, but it was like a wolf. But it wasn't. And to make it even scarier, it was very near to where we were. When the howl sounded, we all shut up and stopped. Nate and Byron shone their flashlights, trying to pierce the darkness. We were now standing inside the bridge, and on either end, all we could see was darkness. "What the hell was that?" Nate finally said. "Where did it come from?" I asked. "It sounded really close." We fell silent again. There was no other noise around us. It must have been a wolf," Becky finally whispered. "A wolf is a wild animal," Nate said. "It would have run away scared when it heard us." My heart was beating in my chest. Whatever it was, do you think it's gone?" I asked. Byron came over and stood next to me. "It's fine," he whispered, "and it was probably just a wolf that got spooked. I'm sure it has run back into the woods away from here." No sooner did Byron say that when that horrible howl ripped through the night. It was so close now it echoed through the bridge. We all screamed. The guys yelled. "What the fuck?" Byron yelled. "Where is it?" Scratching sounds now, directly above our heads. It was on the roof of the bridge. All of our heads looked up and followed the sounds with our eyes. Whatever it was that was up there sounded huge. We could hear its feet stomp on the roof, followed by scratching sounds as its nails dug into the wooden roof. "Holy fuck, it's above us," Nate whispered as he shone his flashlight to the ceiling. "Yeah, no shit, Sherlock," Byron whispered back. And another howl ripped through the night. It was so close now it may as well have been standing right beside us. "Go!" Nate yelled. "Just fucking go! Get back to the cars!" And just like that, we all began to run, and as we did, the footsteps above us began to run too. We made it out of the bridge and onto the road. We had nothing more than 2 flashlights. As we ran, we heard a thump as whatever it was that was on the roof jumped off and landed on the dirt road. We didn't look back. We kept running. The 2 cars came into view. When we reached the cars, we jumped inside. But if there was any relief to be found from that, none was found then. At first, we sat quietly. I began to sob quietly, as did Becky and Janet. We heard Nate start the engine on his car, and Byron followed suit. We were going home, and finally I started to feel relief. Nate pulled away first, and then finally Byron. We heard no more howls as we drove off, but in order to get back to town, we had to turn around. In order to turn around, a 3-point turn had to be done. It was either that or drive through the bridge, which none of us wanted to do. Nate did his turn and waved at us as they drove by. Then Byron started to make his turn. As his light shone through the trees as he was making his turn, in the shadows we managed to just briefly make out a shape. It was a very large humanoid shape, covered in hair, with pointed ears, and it stood amongst the trees looking back at us. Byron managed to get turned around and we headed back into town. When we got back to Nate's house, we all started freaking out. Nate's dad laughed at us, telling us it was nothing more than our own imaginations, buying too much into the urban legend, or someone was out there playing a trick on us. And then he scolded us for being out there in the first place. When I got home that night, whenever I would fall asleep, I would hear that howling in my dreams, and I would see the gigantic shape hiding amongst the trees. A few years ago, a TV show came to town to film an episode about urban legends, and our beast of Badger's Bridge was the topic. A few weeks before the film crew arrived, they advertised on different media outlets, asking for anyone who had any stories to tell. I didn't participate.